What's going on, everybody? I'm Mara.
And I'm Taz.
And welcome back to Sisters Who Kill. When tragedy strikes and you don't know what to do, what do you do?
Our players this week are Emmanuel Scott Jr., Tiffany's son, and our victim. Emmanuel Scott, Tiffany's boyfriend and accomplice, and Tiffany Woods, our murderess.
Tiffany M. Woods was born on February 23rd, 1980 in New Orleans East. When she was in high school, she found out that she was pregnant and she gave birth just a few months before graduation. She had a very healthy and happy baby boy in 1997. In 2000, she had another baby, a very healthy baby boy. So now she's got two. She's got Nijon, she's got Troy, and she's so in love with being a mom. She's a young mom, first kid at 17, next kid at 20, but still loved her boys. Now they do have the same name, which is her maiden last name, but she has two different baby daddies. Both of her children's fathers are in jail. All she's got are her boys, and all her boys got is her. After a while, she met a guy named Emmanuel. Emmanuel Scott was born on December 31st, 1986, and Emmanuel did not make it through school as much as Tiffany did. He only had a 9th grade education. He never went and got his GED, even though he is 6 years younger than Tiffany. Their relationship flourished. I'm sure they decided that they wanted to be together, that they were in love. And Emmanuel actually has a daughter from a previous relationship. It seemed like he had custody of his daughter. So here we are, a young blended family, a very, very young blended family. And then Tiffany finds out that she is pregnant again. Now, this is late 2004. She's pregnant with Emmanuel's second child, her third. This pregnancy, it seemed like, from what we can tell and what we know, and our sources are limited about her entire pregnancy, but it seemed like this one was different than the others. She was in a different place. She probably wasn't at home with her mom anymore. And she received absolutely no prenatal care. None whatsoever. Also, they said that she had a beer or two, and that can make a baby have low birth weight. Also said that she smoked a little weed.
It's so weird because can't really have no research. Ain't nobody being like, all right, this group drink liquor, this group drink beer.
Because no one's gonna
volunteer to harm their child like that. And so some people be like, oh, it's fine, I did it. And some people had the smallest drop and something happening. Alcohol, is it though?
Right. And they did do research on breastfeeding and smoking weed, but they did it one time years ago in Jamaica. And that's the only bit of research. So if you try to look up anything, it's very, very limited. But anyways, they ended up having a baby. And her and Emmanuel, they had Emmanuel Scott Jr.
Emmanuel Scott Jr. had a rough entry into this world. He was born via C-section on June 23rd of 2005, and he weighed only 3 pounds at the time of his birth. And he was born very dehydrated, 7 weeks premature. This is another one of the examples. Was it going to be like this always? The beer, was the weed, was it a combination?
And born in June, I was pregnant in June. And when I tell you I had to chug that water, the number one thing they told me while I was pregnant: drink water, electrolytes, coconut water, liquid IV, all of the electrolytes, put a little Himalayan salt in your water. You had to stay hydrated because
hydrating for 2.
You hydrated for 2 in the summer in the South. It's a lot.
Shortly after he was born, he had to be resuscitated, and a tube was then inserted into his nose to help him. After that, of course, he was taken to the NICU, where they held him for a bit of time. Now, following the national guidelines, all newborns are required to take an APGAR test as soon as they're born. APGAR stands for Appearance, pulse, grimace response, activity, and respiration. The highest score for each section is a 2. So if you're perfect, you got a 10. 7 to 10 is considered in the normal range.
Mm-hmm.
Anything lower than that indicates that the medical attention needs to be had. I don't know exactly what EJ scored, but I don't think he was in the 7.
No.
He also had to have his blood drawn for genetic testing for abnormalities and diseases, including an MCAD deficiency. MCAD is a genetic disorder that affects newborns' ability to break down certain fats, which can lead to health risks if not diagnosed or treated early. Now, symptoms of MCAD include low energy, lethargy, vomiting, blood sugar, weakness, or fatigue. And there's no cure for this. It can be managed by diet, but there's no cure. You're always going to have to monitor. You're always going to have to regulate.
Yeah, it's a state regulated test for Georgia, so it must be a state regulated test for you, Louisiana. But they prick the baby's heel, and then you got to put a drop of blood everywhere. And the state calls up and is like, "Did you go get your baby blood drawn so we can figure out what's going on?" They have to do it just to, and the hearing test.
Mm-hmm.
So EJ must have been able to hear.
Yeah. For an infant, monitoring and regulating this looks like is feeding the children extra or the infant extra to make sure that his blood sugar isn't dropping. So he would ideally need to eat every 4 to 6 hours, including overnight. And this is even just while he's in the NICU. Like, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. As the baby's diet transitions after they're getting off of breast milk or formula, they recommend a diet that's low in medium chain fatty acids and high in carbs, so that they can keep their energy up. So, like, you need something that's going to stick to your stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Although MCAD can be very serious, it can be very manageable as long as you're diagnosing early and you're doing the things that you need to do. People have long, healthy lives with MCAD. If it's left untreated, it can have lethal complications. On the lesser end of lethal, you can have brain damage, liver disease, but like it can kill you. Emmanuel's MCAD screening comes back positive, but they're like, we're not 100% sure from this blood testing. We're going to have to do a follow-up test at a biomedical genetic lab. And he's only 3 pounds, 2 ounces. So they're like, we obviously can't take you to the lab right now to go do this testing. You have to get your weight up.
I was going to say, he needs all his blood.
You got to get your weight up. So they were like, once we decide he's good to be discharged from the NICU, then you can go take him to get this testing.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they're probably just treating him as if he has it and like give that baby you got to put his weight up anyways because he's premature.
Right. And he's got to learn how to eat. It might be the type of formula they give him, maybe. I don't know. But put some meat on that baby bones.
Mm-hmm. All this time that the baby's in the NICU, Tiffany's discharged, and she and Emmanuel go back home to their other kids. Baby Emmanuel is just being fed by the NICU nurses. Tiffany and Emmanuel are going up to the hospital. They're visiting whenever they get a chance. Like, they know their baby at the hospital. They check in. Within a month of his birth, Emmanuel starts putting that weight on. He's taking bottles. He's doing good. He's now up to 5 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 pounds, 6 ounces, 17.7 inches. And they're like,
still an itty bitty thing.
He's still little. I remember my niece, she was born premature and she was so tiny always. Like, I remember.
She's still tiny.
She's like, but she's tall now. I just remember, and I guess she was always long, but I just remember like her being in her little boppy. And you see that extra space on this chair?
Mm-hmm.
That's how she was.
Itty bitty.
Itty bitty. Like, that thing ain't doing nothing for her. So tiny. And her little finger, like, there's a picture of her holding my sister's hand, and her whole fist goes around my sister's pinky, like right there.
Mm.
It was so tiny. He's doing so well that on August 2nd of 2005, they're like, baby EJ, you get to go home. They wrote on his chart, good luck with this one. He's very cute. He gained a total of 36 ounces in his 40-day stay at the hospital. They were like, okay, Tiffany, we need you to do some things before you check on out of here. We need to teach you how to care for this baby with the MCAD deficiency. Most importantly, feed him often. They go over what Tiffany needs to do. But in his discharge papers, there's no mention of an MCAD deficiency. There's no mention of a need to feed Emmanuel frequently. There's no notes. And these doctors be talking a lot. It's me. I be like, damn, what all did they say?
Yeah.
And they always keep saying, it's going to be in your discharge report. It's going to be in the paper. I'm just saying it, but it's going to be in the paperwork.
That's what they always say, yeah.
It definitely should have been something to refer back to, but she didn't have that. They do make her take a CPR class before she leaves. Her and Emmanuel pack up baby EJ and they head to the crib with the rest of the siblings. The kids finally get to meet the little brother. Like, it's a happy day.
Yeah.
The hospital did send the parents home with a heart and a lung monitor, just in case baby EJ stops breathing. He 1 month old and 5 pounds. Like,
he's still itty bitty and he just got out of the NICU.
You know what I mean? And you still got to follow up and see about this MCAT. Let's just make sure that we're keeping an eye on him. Tiffany goes home thinking, my baby's discharged. My baby,
we're good to go.
Good to go. They say he has this deficiency, but I don't think it sounds as serious as it is to her. And I don't think she's aware of the full repercussions that this could have if not managed appropriately. Now, a few days later, Tiffany takes baby EJ to his first pediatric appointment. At the pediatric appointment, they schedule a follow-up so that they can confirm his MCAD deficiency. He was scheduled to visit Tulane Genetics Lab on August 29th.
That's August 29th of 2005, the day that Katrina hits. So the day before that, on August 28th, 2005, the mayor is like, okay, mandatory evacuation, everybody out. So obviously her appointment is canceled and they're trying to figure out where they're going to go. They're a young couple. They ain't got a whole heap of money. They're definitely not thinking about the genetics lab right now. They're trying to figure out where they're going to go. Her, Emmanuel, 4 kids in tow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then watching that Katrina documentary, it was hardest on people like Emmanuel because he literally just said, get out the city. And they was like, what car? Where we gonna go? Who got gas? Gas stations empty.
Yeah.
For miles. Like, you really got to strategize how you gonna get out of there, where you gonna go, who you gonna go to. They've got a couple of shelters, but the shelters are filling up fast. Lines out the ass.
And so they get in the car and they drive to Shreveport. Shreveport is 320 miles away from New Orleans. Emmanuel calls up one of his cousin Eugene Bibbins, is like, hey, bro, I need to move in. Me, my girl, all our kids. Katrina is about to hit. And everybody knew that it was going to be pretty serious. And as many of y'all know, Katrina was catastrophic. And it wasn't just the storm. It was the state, the local, the federal government, and how everybody reacted to the storm that made it even more detrimental than it already was.
And it honestly wasn't even the storm. After the storm passed, it was like, oh, we good.
And then the levees broke.
It was the levees, not the storm. You know,
it was the levees and the government. It was the government
built.
It was the government. And then the levees broke. Everybody, those two, okay? They're in Shreveport. They're doing the best they can with what little they had. And Tiffany and Emmanuel, they have nothing. Like, you leave with what's on your back, because even though you leave, sometimes there's that voice in the back of your head where you're like, okay, we're just going to go back home.
Especially in Louisiana, who sees hurricanes all the time. The hurricane
Some
before
people didn't
this,
take it seriously.
The hurricane before this, they said the same thing. It's like, it's gonna wipe the city out, and they was like, we're fine. And so when you can only call that so many times, and people not gonna believe the next
Especially
time. They be like,
folks.
I spent all this money
Boarding up my house, buying sand, doing all
or
this.
even evacuating, getting hotels, and everything was fine.
Yeah,
I ain't got the money to spend like that.
So they're trying to figure out where they're gonna stay, and they can't stay where they are for long. So now all of the kids, they end up getting put in a sports arena, the Hirsch Coliseum in Shreveport. And they're staying in shelters for a while. Them, 2 little boys, 1 little girl, and a sickly infant. They're just trying to figure out how they're going to eat every single day, how they're going to feed these kids. And honestly, if you look at the grand picture, the grand scheme, they're considered one of the lucky families because they were able to get into the shelters. That's why. And everybody's constantly trying to help, but also there seemed to be, like, what I heard was there was a lot of pushback from the neighboring counties because all of these people were coming in. All of the resources were being taken up. And luckily she was able to use government assistance because the state assistance was being wiped out. So she has WIC while they're living in Shreveport. They're feeding their kids. They're using the food vouchers. And Big Emmanuel, he starts working. Great. He can work. Tiffany staying home with the kids. Somebody's got to bring money into this house somehow, some way. And so here it is. It's October. Now, the hurricane hits at the end of August. It's October and benefits have ran out. They hadn't been allocated to people in New Orleans. So a lot of people that were receiving WIC were no longer receiving WIC, including baby Emmanuel, including the entire family. But baby Emmanuel specifically is being affected because WIC buys formula and Tiffany's not breastfeeding. Formula, he needs a very specific type of formula because he's still a preemie trying to get his weight up despite being moved from place to place to place to place to place. I don't think that they realized how big of a problem it was because little Emmanuel, they said he was getting longer, but he wasn't like getting his weight up. And it was very hard to find the right formula for him because he was constantly throwing up, violently throwing up. And formula and finding the right formula for your baby is tricky. Sometimes the formula makes your baby constipated. Sometimes it makes your baby violently sick. Sometimes you just have to really find the right balance for your child. And as a parent, it's very hard. And so now they can't afford it. And formula is hard to steal. It's hard to steal. It just is. And so they're trying to figure out what do they do? How do they feed this baby? And Tiffany or Emmanuel, or maybe both of them sat together, put their heads together, and they thought, milk? What if we do cow's milk? Okay, well, maybe not cow's milk from the store, but maybe like if we buy some like straight out the teat organic cow's milk, maybe that will have the fat content because that milk, it also has the fat polyp that sits at the top. It kind of resembles breast milk, like separating. So maybe she was thinking like, if I give the baby cow's milk and it's super organic, that'll help. And so that's what they do. And that's what they feed Emmanuel with.
Tiffany and Emmanuel, they're kind of like feeling a little frustrated. They were really counting on that WIC to feed their baby. WICs are cut off. They're doing the best they can with the options that they have. Even in like, you know, most people would be like, maybe if I just go back home, back to all my resources, or I can go up to the WIC office or whatever. But New Orleans is still recovering.
And that means the whole state is recovering.
And on top of that, they were pushing out poor people anyway. Like housing projects that weren't even damaged, it was like tear down anyways, chance to start new. So some people just, regardless of how strong standing their building was, didn't even have the option to come home. Then you do come home, it's flooded, you got mold, and that mold been sitting there for months. And it's completely starting from scratch pretty much for everybody in those affected areas. Tiffany is stressed. Tiffany's depressed. He's got this baby who's what, at this point, like 4 months?
And still itty bitty.
Still itty bitty with
Not
3 other
milestones.
4 other kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Money tight. You just had to up and leave your city on some evacuation shit. You have nothing. You have no resources.
Resources are depleted.
I bet she's stressed. I bet she's got a little postpartum going on. Like, it's a lot on her plate, you know? At this point, Tiffany and Emmanuel do feel like they're doing what's best for their baby. And they're going to get this cow's milk, organic cow milk. And they're mixing it with water. They're not just going up straight cow mix. They're doing a little 50-50 ratio. And
you ever come up with science in your head and you believe it's true?
It just gotta work.
Like, yeah. I think that's where they were at.
Like I told myself, I bet if I burn the end of my broom, it'll catch all the pet hair. Like if I burn it and make all the, then it should be able. I think I fucked up the broom.
Sometimes it's not, yeah, but like sometimes
it makes sense up here.
Something I would like, that's science. It was just my brain, but I'm really convinced it's science. I think that's what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they probably didn't even have the thought, you know, or anybody to just say, what about goat's milk? I think that's what I would have tried. Goat's milk.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what you would have tried.
But also, like, if you're looking at the formulas and you don't know, Big Emmanuel's got a 9th grade education. She got pregnant for the first time had the baby at 17, maybe got pregnant at 16. They're both trying to figure it out. And if you look at formula, even like the fancy formula, you see a picture of a cow. There are some that have goats on it, but mostly you see a picture of a cow.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see why they were like, okay, if 1 + 1 is 2, then 2 + 2 is 4. And we're here.
I follow that, except for everybody's hang up is when they teach you how to take care of that baby when you leave the hospital. When she said they taught me how to, they say that they tell you don't give no baby cows milk.
I was never told that.
You ain't had your baby in the hospital.
I mean, but still, I had...
Like your midwife?
I had a midwife. I had a midwife assistant. I had a doula. I went to a childbirth education class. And no one... They always said no honey. They always said no honey. But I don't think I was ever told that. I knew, like, I planned on breastfeeding. And I knew my options if breastfeeding didn't work out. And I had a plan. But I also... It's not 2005. And I had TikTok to help with everything else in between. And even still... No one said it.
I've talked to like 3 or 4 other mothers, and it was like, some have said the hospital definitely tells you, and some have said, I don't know how I know, but I knew. I don't know who told me, but they told me.
But they're sure that somebody told them.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody told me. I knew, but I don't remember specifically being told.
The effects of this cow milk on Emmanuel, it wasn't felt immediately. But over the course of about 3 weeks, that shit was tearing him up. The effects of cow milk on newborns. Research says that cow milk is not for humans, let alone infants. It has proteins in it that babies under 12 months cannot properly digest because of how immature their gut, kidneys, and immune systems are. And it doesn't have certain vitamins like iron, which is essential to babies' development. Now, the CDC says that introducing an infant to cow's milk before they're 12 months old can increase the risk of intestinal bleeding. Even though formula is made from cow's milk, it goes through a process where proteins are removed and then altered before adding it back to the formula. But it's also said this is a common mistake that people make. And they said it's not just made by new or young parents. Like, it happens.
Because Tiffany, this is her 3rd kid.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what everybody, that was the hang up. You've got 3 kids. You should know better.
2 healthy kids that you had no issues with and your WIC probably hit every month on time versus a sickly kid that through the craziest circumstances. I could see how, and they say each child is different. Each child is different. Each pregnancy is different. Even just your body is different. Like I know some people that breastfed for their first 2 children, but they couldn't get anything out for the next one. So the circumstances are not the same, no matter how many kids you have.
Tiffany does notice that baby EJ is very sleepy. He's having a hard time eating ever since we switched to this cow milk. She's just like, you know, my poor baby's sick, going through it, it's messing up his stomach. He's throwing up, but he's throwing up less than he was with the formula.
So she's thinking it's a win.
He's always had issues gaining weight. He's a preemie. She's probably like, oh, it's probably normal for his weight to function. There's a lot of assumptions going on. His belly starts to become distended. His face is starting to sink in. His arms are getting really skinny. His legs are getting really skinny. He's not looking well. And then on the morning of November 27th of 2005, Tiffany, it's 6 a.m. She's in the house and she's ready to go get Emmanuel for his first feeding. So she makes him a bottle, half organic milk, half water. Tries to feed Emmanuel. Emmanuel's not really having it. Tiffany gives it a little more try and says, well, if you're not hungry, I can't make you eat, right? Puts him back in the crib. She goes back, lays down. He starts to cry again. So she gets up and she checks on him. He stops crying and she was like, must be okay. He must have soothed himself back to sleep. Waiting for me. She goes back to sleep. She gets back up at 9 to 10 a.m. and she goes to peek on her baby. She says that he appears to be alive and breathing, still resting. What a break, right?
Yeah.
Let that baby sleep.
Because sometimes the baby's asleep. I did the don't wake baby method. I did not wake that boy up. He woke, when he was hungry, he woke up. Sometimes it was every 2 hours. Sometimes it was 3. Sometimes it'd give me a little bit more. But I did, that was my healthy, came out of the very plump baby that did not need anything extra to eat.
Tiffany says it gets to be 11 or 12 and she's getting ready to go to the store because her baby needs some diapers. So she goes to check on him and now he's cold and stiff, which is scary. Because you feel like you were just in there an hour ago and he was alive and breathing. At this time, Big Emmanuel's outside smoking a cigarette. Kids are running around the house. She calls 911. Tiffany runs outside to go get Emmanuel, and the two of them head back to the room where Tiffany then starts doing CPR. Thank God for that class she did at the hospital, right? She does CPR on her baby until the fire department arrives.
The fire department, they were dispatched to the home first. Police, they get there pretty quickly after. And police officer D. Martin, badge number 265, responded to the scene. And the police officer said that immediately, like they see the baby, life-saving measures are being taken, and they also see that they're not working. And the police officer was like, those parents, something's off about them. The first thing they say was that Tiffany wasn't acting or responding like a grieving mother should. They said that she was very calm, very detached. She wasn't hysterical or crying what he thinks that a mother should be if you just found your baby stiff and dead and doing CPR, which I also don't know. Like, what did she get all that frantic out while she was doing CPR, and then finally she realized that it was over, and then
or
the
maybe
wall
she
comes
don't
up?
realize it's over, and she's just trying to stay locked in. She's doing.
Are you
that
trying
until
not
they
to
get
freak
there.
out because you still do have these other kids looking at you? So you're trying to just make sure that like you're putting on a brave face,
or is
for
it
your
your
two
hope
boys and the other girl?
You know what I mean? Like, is it your hope holding you out? Like, if I just stay focused, we'll figure it out. There's no need to panic because we'll figure it out. Like, just stay focused, stay calm. You know, you got to keep your composure.
Or is it just exhaustion? Like,
I was going to say, or are you just tapped?
You know? So the police are talking to the fire department because the fire department made it there first. The fire department is doing the life-saving measures. The police, the responding officer is talking to the responding fire officer, Officer Adams. And he's like, I don't know, man. This baby look a little malnourished. It seems like the baby was maybe neglected, like just malnourished. Like the signs are all there. They checked the baby, but there doesn't seem to be any external injuries. It's not like the baby was abused. It wasn't hit. No blunt force trauma, nothing like that. No strangulation. None of the things that you would see in cases where there was intent. But still, there's a stiff, dead baby that looks like it hasn't been eating. And according to the police report, it says, quote, a premature 5-month-old infant was discovered not breathing by parent. Infant was pronounced dead, DOA at the scene by Shreveport Fire Department. Investigation continued. And the first thing they do is they interview Tiffany. And Tiffany just lays out everything that happened. She got up at 6 a.m. Everything was fine. Tried to give him a bottle. He didn't want it. Got up at 9 a.m. He was unresponsive. They were like, okay, is there anything that you can tell us about the baby? Like, that we need to know? She's like, the baby was premature. It seemed like he was catching a cold, but that was it. So then a social worker pulls up to the house because obviously that is the next step. And social worker Beverly Hunter shows up around 1 p.m. Looks around the house. She looks at baby Emmanuel. She talks to all of the adults. And one of the things that Tiffany tells the social worker is that she was like, I was worried about the baby's health. Like, he's a sickly little baby, but Emmanuel was like, oh, I think the baby is fine, and kind of brushed it off. And I don't drive. Emmanuel drives. So if he thinks we're good, we're good. And we never went into the hospital or anything like that. And the social worker is still getting this like, I don't know, girl. It seems very flat. Like, it doesn't really feel like you're grieving. And Tiffany's response really messes her up because she says, I'm not grieving. When I found it, it was stiff. It was gonna die. I didn't kill it, and it was gonna die anyways.
First red flag is it.
First red flag is I'm not grieving. Well, I don't know, because sometimes grief takes a minute to kick in. If you're survival mode, still don't know what's going on, but when I found it, it was stiff. I didn't kill it. It was gonna die anyways. And Beverly is like, hold on. Looks at all these kids. She said, really, everybody in this house look a little unkept. And she even went so far as to say the kids look dirty. This baby walking ain't potty trained and soiled himself or herself. This baby clearly has a soiled diaper. Beverly starts changing the diaper, and Beverly can tell by the baby's bum that your diaper doesn't get changed very often, does it? Baby's got dried mucus on the face. Said the baby was very lethargic with Emmanuel's daughter. with all this information, this is why you always got to wipe your kid's face. I tell G2 all the time, he can't wipe his own face, but I be telling him, you ain't finna be out here with no dirty nose at all. At all. If we got to wipe it 1,000,000 times, because ain't nobody going to be able to say my baby dirty. You can't say it.
Can't have it.
And so she's very suspicious. And she said her professional opinion is that these parents are not suited to take care of any of the children. Being concerned about the well-being of the children that are in front of her, she takes them into her custody.
Which, that's a heavy day.
That is a heavy day. That's a heavy life. That's a heavy quarter.
Oh, yeah. So Detective McConnell and Deputy Coroner Craig Willis are also at the scene. And Detective McConnell is like, I want to speak to Tiffany myself. He's looked around. He's inspected the house. He sees that the fridge is clean. The fridge is well stocked. It has organic milk and beer inside of it. He sees that there are jars of baby food on top of the fridge. In the bedroom, there's a full-size bed, a playpen, and an infant bed. And he finds 2 bottles of milk in the infant bed and 1 empty bottle inside of the playpen. The detective is like, I want to talk to Tiffany myself. He doesn't read her any Miranda rights because at this time, she's not a suspect. We just want to talk. So she tells him everything pretty much about Emmanuel's life.
And I'm sure she's thinking, like, this is just an unfortunate case of SIDS. And this is probably the formality when there's an unfortunate case of SIDS.
So she's like, he's premature. He's always struggled to gain weight, struggling with milk, pretty much told him everything. Talks about their journey, getting to Shreveport, how they were evacuees. And she's telling the police that he's been sick. She's been struggling to feed him for days. He asks, when's the last time baby EJ went to see a doctor? And she's like, not since they've been in Shreveport, which is August, September, October.
3 months, maybe 2.5.
So the detective is like, why haven't you taken him to the doctor? And she was like, well, his daddy don't like doctors and I don't drive, he drives, so he wasn't really trying to take us to the doctor. She goes into her struggle about feeding him the formula. It's upsetting his stomach. She switched to 50-50 milk. Like, I don't really think she thinks she's doing anything wrong at this point. She's very forthcoming with the information and all of that. He says on this morning, Emmanuel woke up at 6. He refused to eat. She lays him back down. He cries. He stopped. She checked on him. He was fine. The detective is taking like, this could just be a regular situation. So next he goes and he talks to Emmanuel. And Emmanuel pretty much matches up. There's a couple of details that Tiffany didn't mention or that didn't add up. Like Emmanuel wasn't home the night before because he was at work and didn't get off till 1 a.m. But he did get home after 1 a.m. He did get in bed and he did not check on any of the kids. He didn't even check on Tiffany. He just fell straight asleep. He says that about 40 minutes before baby EJ was discovered, he was outside smoking a cigarette. Had probably sat out there a while decompressing. He still ain't checked on his son. So if you got questions for Big E about what happened that morning, he can't tell you. My man's was tapped out.
I mean, when you get off of work, you probably do just want a cigarette before you got to go in and deal with everybody.
I mean, I think he took a nap first, woke up from that nap, then took a cigarette break. But I think also a part of him is like, if the house ain't active,
I can chill. Because, I mean...
Or it could just be, you don't feel like that's his role,
Or maybe that, because he's working, she usually takes care of that. Maybe usually their flow is that he takes the afternoon shift before he goes to work because he's up then. And she gets a little nap in during the day. You never know how they flow work.
Right. He's also telling the police, my son too much premature. We just had to evacuate New Orleans because of Katrina. I've been in Shreveport. We ain't seen a doctor. I don't really like doctors. It was like, well, did they have anything that they gave y'all? Like, what was it like when you left the hospital? He says, oh, well, they did give us a heart and lung monitor.
Okay.
Well, we ain't used that in about 2 months because the battery died and we just ain't got new ones. And they're like, that kind of feels like an easy fix.
And he also thought that everything was going to be okay because Big E was a preemie. And he was like, I mean, I'm fine. Just not a good way to look at things.
Because Eugene is still at the house too. So he speaks with the police, and he says that he got up around 10:45. He went for a walk, and by the time he came back from his walk, fire department was there. He don't know what the hell happened. He did say that Tiffany and Emmanuel were at the house while he was on his walk, and he did confirm that Emmanuel was fed 4 to 5 times a day with a mixture of cow's milk and water. And he did say that Emmanuel usually threw that up. Now, according to kidshealth.org, a 3-month-old, which Emmanuel is, it'd be breastfed about 8 to 3 times a day. Now, according to kidshealth.org, a 3-month-old breastfed baby is eating about 8 times a day.
Really?
A 3-month-old formula baby eats about 6 times a day. And this is ranging from 5 to 7 ounces. So if everybody's story is that this baby's eating 4 to 5, it ain't adding up. But then I also wonder, like,
he's still tiny,
he's 3 months old, but he's probably got a newborn-sized stomach.
I don't know, but he's also throwing things up constantly, so he needs to be eating more. But yeah,
he needs to be eating more because he's throwing up. He needs to be eating more because he has this deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
But
the formula is supposed to stick to you a little bit more.
But I'm wondering if their thought process is like, yeah, the other kids ate about 6 times a day, but he little, so he don't eat as much. You know what I mean?
And babies aren't going to eat on the same schedule as the big kids, even if the big kids are in diapers. Detective Johnson was called out to the scene, and Detective Johnson starts seizing things, starts taking pictures, starts treating this as a crime scene. And one of the things he does is he takes pictures of the fridge. And like has said, the fridge is stocked. There's home cooked food. There's that organic milk. There's Natty Lights. Like it's not an empty fridge. They also take pictures of the crib. And like has said, there's bottles in the crib. There's bottles in the playpen. There's evidence of attempts to feed. I wonder if those bottles are out. How fast does that natural cow milk go bad? Because breast milk has a shelf life. And so I have to imagine that natural cow's milk has a shelf life. So 2 full bottles in the crib, that's probably not good. Because like, what, it's like 4 hours at room temperature for breast milk fresh out of you. And if it hits, it starts getting rancid. Like you can smell it. You can smell test and be like, ooh, dang, made it to hour 5. Can't give it to him. Save it for his bath. Other things that were taken from the scene are like infant clothing, bars of soap, a napkin, a nose syringe, toilet kit, that heart and breathing monitor, 4 baby bottles, some empty, some not, a videotape, and a photo disc. And when they take the heart monitor, they turn it on and it starts working. It wasn't dead after all.
You say, so y'all just ain't try.
They just didn't turn it on. Emmanuel's body, his little itty bitty body, was transported to the Louisiana State University Medical Center morgue, and his autopsy was done by coroner Craig Willis. And while they're waiting on that autopsy, their arrest report is suspended. They're waiting on the results of his autopsy. The children were taken into CPS, but right now they're not considered suspects, Emmanuel and Tiffany. They're just not taken into custody. We need to see what this report is going to say. And now their big house full of kids is just kind of empty with them. They get a call. Both of them come in for a taped interview and nothing really happens there either. They give the same statement. Nothing changes except for the very, very end of the police report where they always refer back to Tiffany, and she says it again. The report says, quote, she stated several times that he was going to die anyways. She also stated that her and her baby daddy, Emmanuel Scott, had been fighting the night before. The 8-year-old son stated his mother didn't kill the baby. He stated the baby died at 10:02 this morning, which for that 8-year-old little boy, he was the oldest, so he was the helper around the house. He was helping his mom feed his baby brother. And so he knows exactly what's going on. Because 8-year-olds, if we count 8-year-olds out, but 8-year-olds know something. 5-year-olds know something.
Think they do.
They know a little something. They think they know everything, but they know a little something. The autopsy results came back, and little Emmanuel died weighing 5 pounds, 13 ounces, and he was only 22 inches long. So that means he was out of the hospital for 107 days. And he only gained 7 ounces.
No.
It's not good.
Because he spent 40 days in the NICU and gave 36 ounces.
Mm-hmm. So he wasn't losing, right? But definitely wasn't gaining. The forensic pathologist who did the autopsy also said that his liver did not indicate that he had a metabolic disorder, meaning that he didn't have MCAD and he died from malnutrition because basically that milk was starving him to death. And they never went and had the follow-up about MCAD because like the follow-up exam that I had to have for the baby, it turned out he was fine, but you have to go get it so that you know, so that you have these preventative measures. But turns out little Emmanuel did not have it. The autopsy photos also show Emmanuel with an open mouth, thin arms, and a sunken, hollow stomach. They also said that he had high blood uronitrogen, BUN, bun levels, which indicated kidney failure due to that malnutrition. And his body contained absolutely no fat whatsoever. And of course, you know, we need fat. It's a part of our nutrition. There was no evidence of an anatomical defect preventing food intake. So like no tongue ties, no lip ties. And he said even the preemie babies, they have fat on their body. So the fact that he had zero is a really big indicator of how long this malnutrition has been going or how quickly this malnutrition developed. Little Emmanuel's intestines were not abnormal. And his stomach contents had absolutely no food, no fat, and no muscle. And at this point, they weren't looking at Emmanuel and Tiffany before, but they're definitely looking at Emmanuel and Tiffany now because they're thinking, did this happen on purpose? Mm-hmm. Were you guys purposely not feeding this baby anything whatsoever? And because of that, little baby Emmanuel's body was not released to anybody. And nobody really knows why. I think the safest bet is that with the hurricane and people just being scattered everywhere, it's very hard to find the next of kin because the next of kin probably does not have a permanent address because they're probably doing what Emmanuel and Tiffany are doing and staying with somebody. Right. Just trying to make ends meet, see if...
If you've made contact.
If you make contact, make ends meet, see if you can possibly come back to New Orleans, but a lot of people haven't even tried to come back at this point yet. It's only a couple months out. And so after this, the Cato Parish DA's office officially charges Tiffany and Emmanuel with second-degree murder. And it takes a while. I mean, from the moment that Emmanuel died, it took about a year for all of this research for the DA to issue the arrest warrant. And after that, they were arrested. And here's the really crazy thing, because under Louisiana law, cruelty to juveniles, even if it is an accident, it's considered a felony that allows for a murder conviction, meaning that the DA only has to prove that Tiffany and Emmanuel were negligent and not taking care of their baby. They didn't have to do it not on purpose. It could have been just an accident, but since it was cruelty to a child, I mean, we're looking at murder. Yeah, they can just pin the neglect on the fact that they never brought the baby to the doctor. Because I would dare say, wrong choice, but it wasn't neglectful to give the baby cow's milk. It was neglectful to get a professional opinion about the cow's milk. Mm-hmm. And maybe the doctor would have given you a different option, a different resource. Sometimes they be having stashes of stuff in the bag. The pediatrician, they got stuff in the bag. So all you got to do is be like, please.
Listen. On September 19th of 2006, at almost midnight, the evening shift of the Violent Crimes Unit of Shreveport PD executed an arrest warrant for Tiffany and Emmanuel. They were both booked at Shreveport County Jail, and Tiffany, pregnant at this time.
God, she was pregnant again.
I mean, she had a baby right after.
It was probably...
She got pregnant
probably stress
right
sex. And you're freshly postpartum. That man could have looked at her and she probably got pregnant. You just got to look at a postpartum woman the wrong way and she will get pregnant.
The day after her arrest, the grand jury indicted them and charged them both with second-degree murder. She gives birth behind bars to a baby girl who is put in foster care. All her kids are kind of just bouncing around pretty much all their childhood. They're going from foster care to relatives to foster care. One family member eventually stepped up and took in the boys, Island Warwick, who was a cousin who lived in New Orleans. To this, he said, "I wonder if anyone even considered these children in the process. to take their parents away, leaving them hanging in the balance. There's no real hope for them. And I know that's probably hard to see because one, it's a big choice to make is to take in not only somebody's child, but their kids for an indefinite amount of time. Because you may hope that she gets out of jail,
but it's not.
But she's facing a murder charge, you know?
Against a child.
Against a child. So it's an automatic life. Like, when you step up, you got to be ready to step up.
Because the state is ready to.
Take that shit to trial, bitch. Take that shit to trial, bitch. Take that shit to trial, bitch. Take that shit to trial.
Emmanuel and Tiffany, they're tried together and they both plead not guilty. Judge Janet Garrett is presiding, and they're represented by court-appointed defense attorney Eddie Mouton. And he's like, I think y'all should do a bench trial. I think you just need to focus on one person's logic and one person's compassion and let this judge just make a ruling. The prosecutor on the case was Brady O'Callaghan and Suzanne Ellis. Now, in the opening statement, Prosecutor O'Callaghan argues that Tiffany and Emmanuel needed to get some help for baby EJ.
Right.
He says, quote, Miss Woods and Mr. Scott had complete custody and care of this child, and they watched it die of starvation and dehydration in a city that at the time was doing everything it could to reach out to evacuees and place them where medical care is available to anyone who needs it. He told the judge that baby EJ had an MCAT screening at birth, and a letter from the genetic specialist at Tulane Labs suggesting that that test could have been a false positive. Now that paperwork's been misplaced, he couldn't present it at court. But he's saying it's likely that your baby didn't even have MCAT. It's likely that your baby's just malnourished just because you didn't feed him.
Yeah.
And the defense lawyers are saying that Emmanuel may not have had MCAD or any other disease, but that doesn't mean that his parents didn't really realize how sick he was. Like, maybe he did have it and he did need all that, or maybe he didn't have it and something else wrong. They didn't know. The main point of contention was that if Emmanuel was so sick and the nurse had to do so much extra feeding to keep his weight up and to keep him healthy, why is none of that written down in the discharge paperwork?
So who's to really blame here?
The lawyer said, what chance did his young parents have as, quote, impoverished evacuees far from home?
First up to the stand was Detective McConnell. And Detective McConnell testified to how Emmanuel looked, Tiffany's interview, and everything that he found at the house, everything that we've gone over before. Beverly, the CPS officer, she came and talked about her findings and about how she thought that Tiffany was acting, how she thought Emmanuel was acting, how she thought the kids looked. The expert forensic pathologist took the stand, told all the findings about everything that he found while doing the autopsy of baby Emmanuel. And then another doctor came to the stand as an expert witness. His name was Dr. Gerald Whitten, and he's an expert in pediatrics and neonatal, and he reviewed their medical records and spoke on her pregnancy and on baby Emmanuel's NICU stay. He talked about how an MCAD false positive can happen to a premature child. That's why that follow-up exam is so important. That's why that follow-up and testing is so important. He talks about, according to the medical records, that baby Emmanuel was initially fed through a tube until he was able to adapt to nipple feedings. Nipple not meaning the breast, nipple meaning a bottle. Therefore, baby Emmanuel, he gained the weight. He reached that 10th percentile growth curve during hospitalization. And he also talks about how if he's reaching that growth curve, he should still be curving up. They showed me my baby's growth chart. You know, he's chunky. He's like, I was like, oh God. She's like, how much you feeding him? Feed him less. Okay. Talks about how if this baby is healthy, just discharged from the NICU, he should be gaining like an ounce a day. He was out for 107 days. And he did not gain 107 ounces. And then they ask him about organic cow's milk. What are the complications? And he lays them all out, like Taz laid them out for you earlier. And one of the big things is like, if there's malnutrition, it's noticeable. You see it in the child. Like, you see the stomach, you see the eyes, you see the cheeks, you can see malnutrition. So at some point, one or both of the parents should have said, hey, something is wrong. Let's go to the hospital. Let's go find a doctor. Let's seek help. Also, when the baby leaves, there should be some type of class other than CPR. Yes, they got CPR, but they were supposed to get step-by-step details on how to take care of this baby. And they did not get that, especially with Emmanuel being so young, so little, and possibly sick. And one of the things that Tiffany said was that Emmanuel was not feeding. And they're like, okay, well, if he's not feeding, there's a lot of reasons why a baby would not feed. One of those things is probably like the suck and swallow reflex. But according to the autopsy, he didn't have those problems. He didn't have a tongue tie. He didn't have a lip tie. He didn't have thrush. He didn't have anything that would affect his mouth to keep him from feeding. He was just kind of refusing the cow's milk.
Mm-hmm.
And this expert also said that baby Emmanuel was literally the worst off baby he had ever seen. That's a lot of weight and a lot to take in for the judge and for everybody in the courtroom. The next to come and testify was Big Emmanuel. And he's like, listen, I'm just a young dad trying to provide for my lady and for all of these kids. I was never told that anything was specifically wrong with the child. I mean, obviously, we did not mean to starve him. I never saw Tiffany refuse him food. Like we put our heads together and was trying to figure out how to feed this baby because we wanted to feed the baby. They asked him about the day that Emmanuel passed away, and he was like, nobody even told me on the scene that the baby had passed away. Like, we're both thinking that something is happening, that you guys are saving the baby, that y'all are just doing normal questioning of us and asking how the day went while y'all are in the house saving the baby. I had no idea that little Emmanuel was dead. And they asked him about his education. He's like, man, listen, 9th grade education, no GED classes. I don't know what to tell you. They're like, okay, well, what about immunizations? Have you done that? He's like, I mean, we went down to shots for tots, which, you know, that's not going to the doctor.
No,
that's going and getting poked. And they asked Emmanuel, they're like, nothing made you think this baby needs to see the doctor. He's like, I mean, no. He's like, listen, you go, you have a kid. It's your responsibility. Nobody sends you home with an instruction manual. Mm-hmm. They just tell you to figure it out and the kid drinks milk. And I'm just trying to make sure that he drinks. He's not spitting up as much on the cow's milk. It seems like he's all right. We can't afford formula anymore. We're just trying to do the best we can with what little we have. Because if our stamps cover food but not cover formula, even if that's all we got, and we're trying to feed him, we had no idea whatsoever.
Next on the stand, they speak to Dr. Shalini Singh, who is an expert in the field of pediatrics. And she reviews baby EJ's medical charts and discharge summaries. And she noticed that the records lacked social service notes and lab results. She looks at the letter from the geneticist to Dr. Witten regarding retesting baby EJ, but the results of the test were not on record. She reviewed the dietitian's note, which showed that the dietitian believed that EJ was not quite meeting his caloric requirements necessary for him to thrive or begin his feedings orally. But she did see that the dietitian recommended the formula intake be increased. Even at the hospital, baby EJ was only getting enough nutrients to meet the lower end of his energy needs, but not enough to grow. The treating physician recommended that the child's intake be increased, and the nurses were unable to meet the caloric needs, even as they have around-the-clock feeding. You can say you could have did better, but this baby had a team, and the team struggled to get him where he needed to be.
And over here, it's 2 adults, 1 big kid, one of the adults is constantly working and the other one is taking care of the other kids. Because taking care of a baby is a lot for 2 people. I'm telling you.
Dr. Singh is surprised that baby EJ was even discharged at this point. It was like, being that the nurses weren't able to meet the feeding goals, How was Tiffany and Emmanuel supposed to meet the feeding goals?
And this is all before Katrina hits that they were struggling to do that. So taking in the circumstances of Katrina hitting and evacuating and
limited resources and surprise and everything.
Like how she's really saying how are they supposed to meet the goals?
She also sees in the notes that the physical therapist that was assigned to check on baby EJ kind of never did. All the notes say that every time she went to check, he was asleep. Wouldn't check. A week before he was discharged, he was deemed a poor feeder. A week before he was discharged, Tiffany didn't have the opportunity to practice and show the nurses that she could feed him. And Dr. Singh says, if it were me, I would have never released that child. There's no notes in here indicating that Tiffany received any educational counseling regarding proper infant care. And they can say they did, but I'm not seeing it in the notes.
It should be in the notes.
She
and
says,
we've done an episode about like medical care and how everything needs to be very specific. You can't just keep skipping things and think that this is somebody's life.
Mm-hmm. She says that a pediatrician should have followed the child after release from the neonatal care and should have checked on him. How's he doing? Gaining weight? Like, it's your job as a doctor to make sure that the parents understand the severity of this situation. We need to know how this baby's doing. Is he well? And when she's talking about releasing the child, she's talking about metabolic defect or not. Like,
the baby's unwell. She's saying the baby is not well. You released that unwell baby from the hospital. And this is before Katrina hit. This is what, a month before Katrina hit?
Like, whether or not he had MCAD,
quick, so
he's not gaining the weight. Yeah. He's not meeting his goals. Like,
if he was supposed to gain an ounce a day, he didn't. No.
So
somebody should have called. Hey, y'all good?
She says that when you're looking at a child with a metabolic defect, they can look like baby EJ did in his autopsy photos. They can have a distended belly. They can have sunken eyes because there's a metabolic defect.
Mm-hmm.
There is malnutrition, and it's his body.
Right.
And she's like, I don't see any records where the disease has been ruled out. The nutritionist noted that he was low risk for nutrition and was gaining weight. The occupational therapist noted that the child was feeding well prior to his discharge. None of the people were aware. The notes are kind of making it seem like, oh yeah, he's doing good. But also he's not meeting the goals. Mm-hmm. They were also unaware that Tiffany had other children that were older than baby EJ. And they was like, that should have been a considering factor when you think about releasing EJ. You're not releasing him to two parents where all they got to focus on is EJ. You release
household.
Yeah, a full household. Like, we in there.
And these kids be moving.
And she got to watch all of them. So again, you're going from a team to a person who's split between both children. Mm-hmm. Through an evacuation.
Yep.
Through a move. Through a restart. Like, it's a lot. She's also saying, on the other hand, though, a mother with this many kids would need less instruction on how to take care of their baby than a new mother.
I don't think that's true. She didn't have 3 preemie kids. She had 2 healthy, happy baby boys with all the resources in the world. Not in the world, but with more resources than she had with this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if she formula fed or breastfed the first 2, but if your WIC stamps are hitting like they're supposed to, you can formula feed without worrying. If they had iron stomachs that you could switch from formula to formula, they're all right. You don't know what to do with this one. Each kid is different. Everybody I talk to, they say each kid is different.
She also testifies as to how the diluted milk would affect a baby. She says you would see dramatic and observable health problems, and there would have been gross evidence that the child was experiencing these issues. So it's also kind of coming back to, she should have known something was wrong. The doctor said that she was familiar with the WIC program and that sometimes, it requires a pediatrician's documentation of weight to get prescription formula, which I believe is what she was receiving for EJ. And she's like, being that they switched him to cow's milk instead of formula, they said EJ would have suffered quickly as a result to this.
Yeah.
it's not just a change in his diet, it's an adverse change. You know, you introduce food little by little to kids, you know what I mean? And you put him on this cow's milk day after day after day after day. And it's no good for him. And he's got this defect. Like, it's a lot for his little baby stomach to take.
Yeah.
But all this to be said, she says that she finds that an adverse change in a child's diet is usually due to an uneducated parent, not one who is trying to harm their child.
I can attest to that because I just traveled and I stored up a lot of breast milk, but not enough. And so I also had formula. I had formula because it took like a day or two for my milk to come in. I had to feed the baby. But like, they were like, oh, are you supplementing? And I was like, yeah, I'm giving him formula bottles. And my boy was constipated. Like, and I was like, what is it? And they were like, no, you need to like slowly wean him on to formula. I had no idea. My baby, I was like, oh my God, my baby's not pooping. And everything's fine, obviously. But I didn't know. I just thought it was milk. Like, I just
You don't think it's that
distilled water.
deep.
I thought I was doing it. I was like, okay, distill the water first, then the scoops, then you shake.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because I did not have enough stocked up. And they were like, that's why your baby hasn't pooped in 2 days, 3 days. And so we had to, get it out of him. And now we know. But
then I guess it's also hey, somebody help, my baby ain't pooped in 2 days.
it's also 2025.
She was like, all I had to do was text him.
All I have to do is go on TikTok. All I have to do is Google, In 2025, like, it's not in the fucking encyclopedia. Or if it is, you don't know what to look up. Or if you might have what to expect when expecting, but that shit don't have all of every little itty bitty detail. Like, you just don't know.
And it takes more effort to search it out back then.
It took a lot more effort and time, and you can't get to the library because you don't have a bill in your name in Shreveport because y'all just fleeing from Hurricane Katrina. It's a lot harder versus I pick up my phone and I can find just about any answer I need for anything my baby got going on.
Last to take the stand was Tiffany. She spoke about how she watched a CPR video on the night that baby EJ was discharged. And she said that this was the full extent of the training that she had received. She said she was instructed to give the baby medicine every day and to utilize a heart monitor and to feed him at least every 3 to 4 hours. She said she immediately had issues working the heart monitor. She asked for help with the machine. She got help. She still couldn't figure it out. She was unsupervised anytime she was feeding baby EJ before he was released from the hospital. She only gave him 1 bottle in the hospital, and he usually didn't take the bottles that he was offered at home. She said, fuck that heart monitor. She's like, I can't figure it out. I'm the heart monitor.
Because nobody showed her how to use it. And so
or she just, when people got to learn things over and over and over again and it just ain't clicking. But then, you don't want to ask again because you don't want nobody to judge you. Because why the hell is it taking you so long to do it? You'd be like,
the battery dead. Fuck it.
I don't think I need it. She said, she try and feed him every 4 hours, but that don't mean he finishing a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that he's eating as much as he should. He's usually only getting 1 to 2 ounces. And when he is drinking it, he's throwing up almost sometimes as much as he's drinking. So I can feed him. That don't mean it's sticking. And this is with y'all's formula.
Yep.
She's like, I was also told to expect feeding issues because, my baby's premature.
Mm-hmm.
So this feels on track for me. She talks about how at the end of October, her WIC is running out. And that's when they made the decision to switch to cow's milk. And she's like, for me, my baby is eating more and throwing up less on this cow's milk.
A win is a win.
The weight ain't changing, but the food's staying down. She says, I didn't really notice any health problems with him other than him throwing up after feedings and a little runny nose. But this is baby EJ. This is how he's always been. He's always struggled to eat. The whole 3 months, I've struggled to feed him.
Mm-hmm.
We've all struggled to feed him. He just don't eat. My baby don't. People like, my baby don't do that. My baby don't eat. My baby ain't going to keep it down. My baby ain't going to do that much.
Right.
And I think she just feels like she knows her baby. And none of
She's
this
trying
is,
their best to do good by him.
And none of this is really out of the norm for her. The throwing up is not out of the, honestly, him keeping it down is more out of the norm than the throwing up.
Right.
She talks about how her eldest son helped feed baby EJ when needed. She said that Big E wasn't very involved in feeding the baby because he was always at work, but when he had opportunity, he would go and help. He said it was also Big Emmanuel's suggestion to switch to cow's milk, and she complied. And Big Emmanuel is the younger one in this relationship. I mean, he's got to be at that time, what, 18, 19?
No, he's 18 when they were sentenced. So he's like
17, calling the shots for a full-on family and this newborn baby.
And she's like 24. Maybe 22.
They're like, well, ma'am, you always have the choice to take the baby to the hospital yourself. I don't drive. I don't know how to drive. I don't know the Shreveport area. I couldn't take my baby to the doctor. If Emmanuel's not taking me, I'm not going.
Right.
She does say that for a while they were living in a shelter and she did see a shots for Todd's truck and she did take all the kids there to get their inoculations. And then they were living in a shelter and they all did go see the medical personnel there. And she says, nobody told me that they're concerned about my baby.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said, hey, you need to take him to the hospital.
In closing arguments, the prosecution argued that Hurricane Katrina had nothing to do with baby Emmanuel's death.
Bullshit.
They said that baby Emmanuel died 90 days after the hurricane. So clearly that was enough time to get your life back in order after it being completely uprooted from you from the ground. The prosecution said, quote, it's kind of a nasty quote. I do not like this, but here we go. The prosecution said, quote, Emmanuel did not starve in a hut in a war-savage African nation. He didn't starve while being trapped in an attic in New Orleans surrounded by floodwater. He starved in a house in Shreveport, a house with a refrigerator full of beer and food and baby food and 2 healthy parents. And they, end quote. And they really always come in on that beer and cigarettes because their thought process is like, if you can buy beer and cigarettes with regular money, then you can buy formula. That beer could have been, probably was the cousins, right? Because man can't buy beer. B, remember you were talking about how some people, they see small expenses and they don't always see the large, and the small expenses seem doable, but the large expense always seems like
daunting. Also, I don't think it's impossible for Emmanuel to get beer. I think if he know the nigga at the gas station, you don't know what side of town they on, everybody don't give a fuck.
Sure.
But I think even on top of that, like for me, when I spent summers with my dad, there was always beer in the fridge. There was always cigarettes. Might not have toilet paper. Gotta wipe with coffee filters. You might not have the tampons and pads you need because we was house of 5 girls. But it was always beer and cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. For me, it just feels like an impoverished mindset. Because the beer and cigarettes are getting them through the day. You know what I'm saying? It's long hours. It's no help. It's stress. It's paycheck to paycheck. Da-da-da-da. And so you buying that natural ice, that's exactly what they used to drink. The same thing that they had in their fridge. The same shit my daddy had in his fridge. My stepmom had in her fridge.
But there wasn't no real food, was there?
Sometimes there's certain mornings where I remember we ate peanut butter for breakfast. My stepmom, she worked at Taco Bell, so a lot of times she'd bring home the old food for us to eat. A lot of times we would go up the hill to the library where they give away the summer lunch programs.
Mm-hmm.
Go get us a box lunch. They got the little milk and cookies in there. I don't know, but I'm telling you, there was always cigarettes. And I remember sitting there.
There was always Natty Lights.
Always Natty Lights, always cigarettes. And I remember, I'm a math person. I remember, talking to my stepmom and be like, how much is a carton of cigarettes? How many packs you going through a week? So you spend $7 on this pack of cigarettes. You doing about 4 packs a week. You know how much money you spend on cigarettes a month? She was like, don't tell me that. That's when it started to get overwhelming. But I'm just like, no, you do 7 times 4. That's 28. 28 times 4, that's 112. You tell me what you could do with $112 while you sit here.
Pads and tampons, for sure.
The little toilet paper in the house.
You can go to the dollar store and get the cheap scratch your butt toilet paper, but at least it ain't a coffee filter.
Like, and then of course, you know, there are the supplements with the food stamp. And so like when they're sitting there saying that the detectives, they look in the fridge and the fridge is full because there's food. One, full with what? Because again, we'd be the type to have no milk and no cereal. Or like, you know, you got straight eggs for breakfast. And then they kept the eggs because probably one, it was on the Wix and the food stamp, but we could cook the eggs ourselves. My sister was 5 years old making us eggs in the microwave because our parents were asleep and wasn't up. They'd sleep till like 1 o'clock in the afternoon and we're hungry and we're running out of options. So we sitting there learning how to cook and stuff on the microwave, do stuff like that. But I think even like when they were talking about the fridge is full but the kids were nasty, it feels impoverished. I remember going there and being like, we didn't have, laundry was never done. It was living out of plastic bags and we were sharing bath towels, even as teenagers, like sharing bath towels. I hated that shit. I'm like, I want my own towel. This goes around my naked body for me to wipe everywhere. I don't want to wipe my naked body with your naked body. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, it kind of,
That's
when
all
she's
you
talking
had.
about the kids looking disheveled and fucked up and shit like that, like, no, I think these people be out of it, really just trying to survive.
It's definitely survival mode.
And it's definitely a disservice to the kids. But I think that becomes a larger conversation to like, again, how much are we supposed to help our neighbor? Why are we trying to be so strict on food stamps? And like, I remember my granny having food stamps and they gave her $21 in food stamps. The fuck is $21 gonna do for me? You might as well have just denied me.
Yeah.
Like,
Because that's not even the taxes on the food that I need to buy.
you know how many people got food stamps and the food stamps still don't make them through the month? How many people have assistance and assistance just constantly running out and you're supposed to get ahead, but they're not giving you enough money to get ahead. They're giving you enough money to make it. So again, how are we supposed to, like, if I'm just barely making it with the help that you're providing, how do I make it on my own?
Right. Because once you hit the threshold where once you hit the threshold where they take you off of assistance, it's still significantly less than the assistance that you were getting. I know a girl that is qualified for a better job, but because her kids are so young, she's like, I gotta have this job because I need the assistance. Because if I go get the job where they're gonna decline me for assistance, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna survive.
It. I need for that child care money to come through. They care about $250, $360 a week. A week. If you not on caps. So people can't afford to sit there and do it. Even if you get like partial caps, it's like 176, 180, something like that. So it's almost a risk of, can I even afford to do better for myself? And it's really just a cycle and a trap, you know, that keep you down there.
Okay.
So expensive. And then you think you're free when they go to public school, just for public school to let out in the middle of the fucking day.
Yeah, that never made sense to me. Because if I work
a 9 to 5,
and
who the fuck supposed to pick this kid up at?
And if I pick the kid up at 3, you're gonna have CPS at my door. If you pick that kid up late too many times, CPS is gonna come a knocking and wonder why you can't get off of your 5 o'clock job at 2 o'clock to pick up your baby.
Oh, well, that's
or
okay.
You
can pay for after school.
And don't let there be after work traffic and you get late for that. They pay you overtime on after school by the minute. By the minute. I used to get picked up at 5:59 because at 6:01 you were being charged.
Yo, and in some of them, they'll be like, okay, the first 5 minutes by a minute. The next 5 minutes, gonna be $5 a minute. Keep playing with me. I want to go home.
Yeah, they do not play.
So let me see. Was I finished? We're in the middle of your spot, sorry.
Yeah. So the judge deliberated by himself because this was her. So the judge deliberated by herself because this was a bench trial and found them guilty of second-degree murder. And because of that Louisiana law, they were instantly sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. And when the judge handed down her ruling, she said, quote, "The only way I can describe those photos is absolutely haunting." She said in her ruling that Tiffany and Emmanuel had money for beer and cigarettes, so they could have bought formula. She also said that there were inconsistencies in both of their timelines and testimonies, which made her find them guilty. At the time of the sentencing, Emmanuel is 18 years old and Tiffany is 25. So their entire life is gone. I mean, they have a life without the possibility of parole. Their lawyer said that little Emmanuel was another casualty of Katrina. Their lawyer said, quote, "It was a tragic case on every level. Unfortunately, the law just didn't contemplate a situation like this." And I really don't think you can't fathom that 90 days later, there's still going to be people dying of something that happened 90 days prior. But Katrina was that catastrophic, not just physically. It hit everybody in every single way.
Years for New Orleans to recover.
Aren't they still? Isn't there still parts that are recovering?
I'm sure there are, but like, I mean, it's some people who ain't come back, want to prove to come back to like 6 months later.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do on hold from my home for 6 months?
I remember in 2005, that was sixth grade, going this fall of 6th grade. And we just started getting new kids. We just started getting new students. And they would just let them in. In my school, my middle school, you had to audition to get into that school. It was a performing arts school. They were just letting kids in because they needed a school to go to. And DeKalb County was getting so many new kids, refugees from Katrina, that they were just putting them in any school possible. One kid, he was like, "This is a performing arts school?" He didn't know how he ended up there. But I mean, he had to go to school. And so they were just putting those kids wherever they could and I think he ended up staying, I think he did 6th and 7th grade with us and then went on to a public school after that.
Yeah, I remember a girl came to my school and she was from New Orleans. She said she spent her birthday on the roof of her house waiting to be rescued. Like, and then she ended up here.
And you just plopped wherever you land.
Because don't even get me started on the school systems back in New Orleans after they done fucked it up. Fired all the teachers. I mean,
I know there ain't no textbooks.
They did them such a disservice, bro. Them kids. They played about their education because they don't actually want you to be smart.
The government wants to keep you stupid. They do that so that they can feed you whatever and you believe it and you vote for whoever they say to vote for because you just eat what they tell you to eat. Obviously, both Tiffany and Emmanuel file appeals because I'm sure they're distraught. They cannot believe that this is happening to them. Tiffany argues that the state failed to present sufficient evidence to convict her of second-degree murder. Specifically, the defendant contended that the state failed to rule out that little Emmanuel died from MCAD. She also argues that the state failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that her care of the child was a gross deviation below the accepted standard of care. Basically being like, y'all can't say that I was being neglectful. Like, here's the proof of me trying my best. Emmanuel, he said that the state failed to prove either that he intentionally harmed the child or that his conduct with respect to the child was criminally negligent. Further, he said that the state failed to exclude every reasonable hypothesis of innocence, specifically that the child suffered from a physical disorder that prevented him from gaining weight. The baby had an obvious bad reaction to his change of diet, and the defendants indicated that they did not observe any of these signs, and that is the criminally neglectful part because they failed to notice. They were both denied their appeal, saying, quote, "There is no excuse for what these two allowed to happen to that infant."
Tiffany's two sons, once they became adults, they gave interviews regarding their brother's passing. They both said that Emmanuel's death defined their childhood.
Ugh, I bet it did.
Literally the day that their life changed.
Forever.
One son, Troy, said that he got into lots of fights at school because kids called his mom a murderer. He said, quote, "What is the benefit of society keeping these people in prison for life? My mama does not deserve to die in jail because of an accident." And he's working for a church organization. And Nijans grew up saying that he only wanted to prove people wrong about his family and himself. Because, you know, when they calling your mama a murderer,
they calling you, they saying
apple
that
don't
you
fall
ain't
too far, you know?
Then you're in the system for a long time before you go to that family member. It's statistics show that you are going to, air quotes, fail at life, right? And so he took that pain and worked really hard to try and make something beautiful out of his life.
Mm-hmm.
I feel not only for himself, but for his brother's legacy and for his mom's legacy too.
Mm-hmm. He graduated from Southeastern Louisiana University in 2019 and then enlisted in the Air Force, where he is stationed in North Carolina. Now, since being in jail, Tiffany has gotten her GED and a bachelor's degree from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. As of 2001, she's working on her master's, quote, "Because I want to tell my children, even in the midst of struggle and heartache, and no matter what situation you're in, you can change yourself for the better." Mm-hmm. Which I appreciate that she's doing her best to mother from behind bars. Like,
I just always think about people that, like her, when you're in that situation where they close the gates and they say life without the possibility. You tried the parole, you tried the appeal, and they say no. And I wonder,
how do I have hope? You know what I mean? To do something with your life.
Let me go to class. Let me do something. I don't know if I would be able to do. I don't know if I would be strong enough.
Honestly, it's probably.
Or maybe it keeps you busy. Keeps
that's
your
what
mind
I'm saying.
Going.
At least you get to get. Oh, they're gonna let me out this room to go to a class. They're gonna let me out of here to do this.
Yeah.
I think it's probably what keep them going. Emmanuel spent 15 years at the Angola State Prison before talking publicly about the case and his son's death. He said, quote, "When I first got locked up, I woke up in a cell and I kept my eyes closed, hoping it was all a dream." I think it was just 17, 18 when he went to jail.
18.
In 2017, he was transferred to a maximum security housing unit after he was accused of attempting to escape. He says this all happened after he smoked some synthetic weed and then he started hallucinating. In some way and somehow, he ended up on the roof of the prison.
Synthetic weed will do it.
I remember when Smokey was in that chicken coop.
I smoked synthetic weed once in high school and I didn't know what was going on. I said, "Oh, I'm never doing this again."
He's now in solitary confinement. The solitary confinement could be the reason why he hasn't filed for clemency. But in 2021, Tiffany did file for clemency. Brady O'Callaghan, who was the prosecutor on the case, is now a judge in Caddo Parish, and he said Tiffany and Emmanuel showed no remorse. He said, quote, "Absolute callous disregard for the child. As a prosecutor at the time, I never had reservations about the punishment they got. If we want to talk about the slow death sentence, let's look at that child's pictures. The autopsy photos of Emmanuel are the only known photos of him." Which is sad.
So sad.
They said that's the only proof that he ever existed outside of the world of his parents.
Because it's 2005. If they definitely didn't have a phone with a camera. You definitely weren't paying for the newborn pictures at the hospital. That shit expensive.
I'm sure you thought you had time.
Yeah.
And
maybe there was a disposable camera with
you probably thought you had time in that first month, and then once Katrina hit, we're in survival mode.
Yeah. There may have been a disposable camera that never got developed with pictures of him on that is gone with the water.
An article released from the Marshall Project in 2021 brought resurgence to this case. When that article was released, it only took 2 years for the LA Pardon Board to recommend Tiffany's release following her parole hearing via Zoom link in 2023. At her parole hearing, she told the board that she did make poor choices while suffering from depression and stress during a hurricane evacuation. She said she should have known better because this wasn't her first baby. She said, quote, "At that stage of my life, I was a young mother who was trying to take care of her children as best as I could. And I made some terrible decisions. But the woman who sits before you today, I'm not that same person." And I think, like, yes, made some terrible decisions because that's how things ended up. But I don't know that it's completely terrible decisions because you intended
Yeah.
to do bad things.
It's also, I didn't know no better. But
And-
now I know better. I know how to
And I
know
think
how to find
that
better.
argument only gets her so far because she didn't seek help. You didn't know no better, but there are professionals who can tell you better.
Mm-hmm.
And you left it on the hands of a 17-year-old to guide the safety of this child when you have 3 other children.
Yeah.
And so there is that part. And I think that's where she's saying, I didn't make the best decisions and I should have known better. I should have maybe, and I don't think it's necessarily I should have known better not to give him cow milk. I should have known better than to take him to the hospital. I should have known better not to be so lax about his health. I should have known better that I had a preemie and he needed extra
Then push
attention.
come to shove, just call 911. They'll take the baby to the hospital. I want to deal with that bill probably, but still.
In her tax bracket, ignore it. Like, it's going to go there with the rest of them.
Yeah.
That ain't the only debt she got, I'm sure. Or even in her tax bracket, he should be free.
Yeah.
She recounts her crime for the board and says the formula he was taking, he wasn't swallowing. He was always throwing up. We ran out of WIC vouchers. I decided to switch. I switched to organic milk. I thought he was doing better, but he wasn't thriving. He said my family wasn't around me. I didn't know if they were dead or not. I made poor choices. And I lost my son's life because of it. And my son lost his life because of me. And I think that's a lot of accountability, though.
Yeah.
Like, somebody losing their life to your hands versus your son losing your life to your hands is a whole different hit. Like, of course, nobody out here really wants to take a life. No sane person wants to take a life. But damn sure not the life of your kid. Of course, all Tiffany's other kids support her release. They were all on the Zoom call, even Nijan, who was stationed in Alaska at the time. Her children said, quote, "There were many difficulties growing up without her, moving from home to home as a child, with people who were not always caring and loving." The warden, Kristen Thomas, also spoke at the hearing, and she said Tiffany was a low risk and a low need inmate, which is what they're looking for,
Yep.
She said, "We don't really have any issues with Miss Woods. She's considered a jack of all trades, and she's very helpful for us on the compound." Her last write-up was over a decade ago, with almost 12 years. And the board member, Bonnie Jackson, said, "I can see that you are not the same person that you were." Which, I mean, if the goal is reform, it looks like she's done it. It looks like
she's doing it. This is the face of reform.
Mm-hmm.
When news of her parole hearing broke, the original prosecutor, Suzanne Ellis, was pretty upset. And she was very public about her disagreements. She said, quote, "I will go to my grave remembering this baby. This baby was the most pitiful thing I have seen in 26 years. Please do not give her an opportunity at release. Do not give her an opportunity to harm another child because I'm convinced that if she can, she will."
I think that's bullshit too.
I think it's bullshit too. Like
she never sought to harm a child. She never said, "I don't care about this baby." I think they call him an it. But I really feel like a lot of that is postpartum depression, evacuee stress. She had a lot on her plate.
Yeah.
And I think she just, I don't think she was of her full mind at that point either.
And if the baby's not developing and hitting milestones, like at the very beginning, it's like, does this baby even care that I'm here? Like, you're not even looking me in the eye. You're not interacting with me. The baby is what, 3.5 months, and you're not even hitting any milestones. You don't recognize me coming into a room, nothing. You don't recognize my voice. So there's probably a huge disconnect because of the postpartum depression.
And then probably even like preservation, right? Like, she sat there and told that social worker he was going to die anyways. She probably really felt like she was counting the days. I'm going to do what I can for this baby. But I don't think he was born at 3 pounds. Like he was born with the odds stacked against him. Mm-hmm. And she's seeing herself not beating these odds. She's seeing this, like, she's already impoverished. She's already got this 17-year-old baby daddy. She's already stuck out here living shelter to shelter. Like,
I don't know if I said this on the podcast before, but I read somewhere where, like, if you have a family member that you know is going to pass away, or somebody that you know is on their last limb, they start grieving them very early, before their death. And maybe with the baby, maybe she was already grieving his death before he actually. Like, I'm gonna try my best, but
I know he. I know
it's not gonna,
and I can't even get my hopes up because I know
you feel it in your gut. Maybe your motherly intuition was telling you that it wasn't gonna happen, and you
gave up before the fight was over.
Yeah, your mind gave up, or your heart even gave up while you're still just going through the motions so that you can do the right thing. Because her son was like, we're feeding the baby. I gave the baby. I helped give that baby
Detectives
a bottle
come
at 8
there.
years old.
Okay, there's 2 bottles here and an empty one over here. Like,
so there's evidence of a bottle being given to these babies.
And we're not talking about belt abuse. We're not like physical abuse. We're not talking about that. We're talking about malnutrition. And you see evidence of attempts to feed this baby. They just tried to feed the baby the wrong thing.
And the baby was not, and they...
against all other things that the baby was facing.
Yeah. Or potentially facing.
I mean, even still facing the premature, he still wasn't eating well. Regardless if he had the disease, he still wasn't eating well. He still wasn't holding the food down. He still wasn't the weight he was supposed to be. He still had his own challenges to face.
Yep. So Susie, she was really trying to fight this. She was not having the possibility of Tiffany being released. And she was very vocal about it. But regardless of what Susie said, Tiffany had been recommended for release according to the Louisiana Board of Pardons and Parole. And so now the decision is up to the governor, Governor John Bell Edwards. And her son, Nijon, was like, I just want to thank him for the consideration. Like, for the first time in a very long time, we have hope, which is a huge deal for me and my siblings. Like, for a long time, they didn't even have the hope. They just had the thought, maybe the desire, the wish, but not the hope. And this hope can really get you to the next level. Now, if she's granted clemency, she's going to then be housed at the Louisiana Parole Project until she's able to get back on her feet, which is like a halfway house. And as of 2023, Emmanuel has not applied for clemency, which is probably because Emmanuel keeps getting in trouble. And I also understand why Emmanuel is probably getting in trouble. There's that no hope factor there. As of October 27, 2025, Tiffany is still incarcerated at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women, and Emmanuel is housed at the David Wade Correctional Center. And I think the saddest, most tragic part of this case is nobody knows where baby Emmanuel's body is. The Marshall Project did reach out to the Cato Parish Coroner's Office via email, and the remains of baby Emmanuel are unknown. And they said, quote, it is possible that the cremations were placed in one of the pauper ceremonies, but there's nothing documented on his file. So again, there's nothing on this file. We can't even, his big brothers can't even take his cremations or just visit him or anything. There's nothing about baby Emmanuel other than those autopsy pictures. And not even knowing where his little bones are is tragic. It's really, really tragic. And this is the story of the death of Emmanuel Jr. All right, y'all. It's time for...
Well, I'm not black. I'm OJ.
I ain't do it, but if I did, this is how I would have got away with it. I ain't do it, but if I did, I would have probably not had a bench trial. I probably would have wanted a court trial. It's a jury of your peers. Yes, you're not in the city that you grew up in, you're in Shreveport, but also if you and your kids and your baby daddy and all these children are staying with a cousin and he has to take y'all in because, I mean, it's a family duty, I'm sure that there's somebody on that trial that's going through the same thing. There's somebody on that will be on that jury whose family member that they can't get in contact with, whose family member is living with them, who family member has evacuated to Atlanta and they have absolutely nothing. Like, I really think that if you would have just added more people to the situation, more people to think it over, there's a possibility that outcome would have been different.
Couldn't get no worse, right?
It couldn't get no worse.
I ain't do it, but if I did, I had to find a way to take that baby to the hospital.
Yeah.
He needed a doctor. And like sometimes it's even just a doctor saying, I know it's scary, but
he's okay. Yeah. Because I've had the pediatrician be like, take a deep breath. He's fine.
Yeah.
Put some alcohol.
Mhm.
Like,
I ain't do it, but if I did, I'd have figured out that heart and lung monitor.
yeah.
Oh my God, y'all gave up so quickly.
But also, if the baby was out of the hospital that long, right?
And it's been fine that whole time.
Even if I figured out how to use it, I probably would have stopped using it after a month. Just because I've been like, all right.
Feeling confident with the baby.
Yeah, I probably would have.
I don't know. I just think
I would have had to hit the streets finding a booster.
I think
Who is boosting formula?
Yo,
It's hard to find somebody boosting formula, but people are boosting formula. But you know, if you're breastfeeding, a lot of people will breastfeed, get WIC, and then boost the formula. Something. And then it's even like breastfeeding is hard. So obviously that wasn't an option for her for it could be many, many reasons.
probably because the baby was in NICU. So that whole first month,
there's still parents that pump, but there's this, what is it called?
But I wonder what because it takes some time. When did your milk start coming in?
Day 2. Some people are longer. Mine took 24 hours.
Because I'm wondering if it's about when the baby is born or how far your gestation is.
It's about the hormonal change when...
Because the baby was born 2 months early. So...
Could be that. But usually once your hormones change and you have the baby, the milk will start producing. Some people, they start producing milk early.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people like that were in those mommy groups I was in, they would go home and then they would be able to start pumping.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have, it's called DMARE, dysphoric milk ejection reflex, which is basically this it's a psychological hormone, but breastfeeding brings you immense sadness. And so a lot of moms that were determined to breastfeed, they can't because every time that their milk comes out, something in their brain chemistry.
And the body's so weird.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying. And so sometimes I'll be thinking that it's exhaustion for me.
And time out.
Breastfeeding it's exhausting. It's taking it from, I can feel, it's like going through dialysis. Like I feel it coming out of my blood. I feel it coming out of my bones. For real. But, so the exhaustion is very, very real. And it's hard to pump all the time. Or maybe she wasn't a producer. She told me that they basically were like, oh, your birth was so traumatic that your body is not going to produce milk. And that's what they told her and said, all right, your baby's going to be formula fed. And she was just like, okay. She was like, she said because her birth was so traumatic, she never really gave it a shot. They told me I wasn't going to produce milk. I didn't try. I just went straight to the formula.
Everybody's so different.
Everybody's so different. There's no one size fits all when it comes to babies, except for no honey, no cow's milk. I wonder if it would have been different if she even knew to think about goat's milk.
Right. Or were we facing the same issue? And I think that's a lot of the nuance here, right? Was it something that was inevitable? Or
I think that he was another victim of Hurricane Katrina, really.
Or even just
her life, Emmanuel's life, and baby Emmanuel's life was just washed up with the water.
I think Katrina plays a large part in it. I think there's so many unanswered questions that are never really be answered because of research. But there's so many things that baby went through that we can't say for sure was the cause, right? Even in gestation. Did the beer cause harm to you? Did the weed cause harm to you?
Were you smoking that weed out of a paper? Were you smoking that weed out of tobacco?
You know what I'm saying? You put the grabber in that shit. Did you, when that baby came home, was the cigarette smoke still around that baby with these lungs fighting?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's just so many things. And then going to the cow milk.
Did you afford to deep clean the carpets even if you told him to take that smoking outside?
Was you using there's so many
Yeah.
It's so many factors into what could have been a nick against him. So whereas I think Katrina played a big part, I think she knows she played a big part too. And again, you can't say because there's some people who will do that shit their whole pregnancy and have a baby that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
But again, everybody's different.
Everybody's body.
And there's
chemistry is
no way to
completely
say for
different.
sure what choices she made led to his demise. Like, there's no way to say for sure. All we can say is you shouldn't have done that, and that was probably it. You shouldn't have done that, and that was the reason. Nobody knows
That's
what
not-
his life would have ended up like.
And I don't.
Nobody knows that he would have
That's not
survived.
reasonable. That gives reasonable doubt. You know, for me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I feel like she should have had a jury.
Mm-hmm.
It's just enough. And think about it. You have a female judge. Maybe this judge is a mother. Maybe this judge has nieces and nephews. And this judge probably has a lot of money, has not seen poverty, at least recently, you know, and probably is not affected by Katrina the way that you were. I'm sure wasn't affected by Katrina the way that you were. So just having a jury of your peers, meaning your people of your same economic status, people that have been affected by Katrina, people whose family members have been affected by Katrina, I think she just would have had a better shot.
But you know what? I ain't do it. But if I did, taking that baby to the doctor, because I think that would have been a deciding factor for the jury. I think if she was going to the doctor and that happened, I
Yeah.
think everybody would have said accidents happened, the baby, whatever. But the fact that premature baby had not been to the doctor since he was released,
That-
you just stopping by clinics, like, where are your checkups, where
Yeah.
your, like, come on. Who they said possibly has a deficiency, and you just said, fuck a doctor. I think I got it. Like, I think that's the part that's holding her up.
Follow up. Like, I'm telling you, when there was a
I
flag,
definitely, and that's why I was like, there's a burden to share there.
there's when there was a flag on my baby's genetic testing, I wasn't sure if I liked the doctor, so I wasn't gonna go back. And the nurse practitioner there called and say, "Hey, so just so you know, we need you to come back, and we have this case open. The case is not just open with us. If there's a thing on his record, there's a case open with the state, and the state, if we don't report back to the state is going to come find you." And that's all she had to tell me. And I was back in that office because I did not, but they called me and they were like, "No, for real. Like, you have to do this or they're coming for you." Because I definitely was going to be like, I don't know. He seems fine.
I mean,
He is fine. He is fine. He is fine. But we were able to get that follow-up blood work. And nobody, maybe because the records were lost in the flood, nobody followed up. Sad.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very sad. Parole or no parole?
Nah, I want her out.
I think
I'm ready for her to live her life.
Yeah. I think she needs to be with, I think her two older boys are ready for their mom to be out. I think they're going to be prepared. I think they're going to be like, whatever you need,
I wonder if she
mama.
even knows where her daughter is.
I don't hear much about the girl, Emmanuel's daughter, but maybe they would definitely have been separated she would have definitely been separated from the boys because they're not blood related. And maybe one of his family members was like, okay, I'll take in the one that's related to me, you know? So when he says siblings, it makes me think that he at least knows where his sister is. I mean, she definitely would be old enough now to be out of the system and be able to be found. And it seems like her sons really are continuing to do the legwork of fighting for their mom. So I wouldn't be surprised if they found their sister. All right, y'all. That is the end of the show. Let's go ahead and read some reviews and we'll be back. If you would like your Black-owned ad, your small business featured right here on this podcast, shoot us an email, SistasWhoKillPodcast@gmail.com. That's SistasWhoKillPodcast@gmail.com. And your ad will live in a episode forever and ever and ever. Let's go see who our Black-owned ad is for this week. Hey y'all, as you know, people are paying for these Black-owned ad spaces. And this ad space is being paid for by a girl that is chasing her dream. And you can help. Let me introduce you to Lachey. Lachey is an aspiring model, actress, entrepreneur, and she loves everything cinema. And right now, she is in a modeling competition and she needs your vote, okay? She is currently a quarter finalist for the Maxim's modeling competition. And my girl is trying to make it all the way to the top. Yes, she's gorgeous. Yes, she's beautiful. Yes, she can pose left, right, and hair stays laid. But the biggest thing is why she's doing this. She is tired of working 9 to 5. You understand? But also she's doing this to take care of her mom. Who doesn't have the dream to take care of their parents while doing something they love? But Lachey, she's going after it, and you can help. Voting is completely free. My girl is paying for this ad slot to get your free vote. And you can vote every single day. But vote today because she's in the quarterfinals and she's trying to advance to the next round. She is paying for this ad slot to get your free vote. But if you want a couple of extra votes, you can pay for those as well. You see her pictures? Literally, all you have to do is click the link in our description box below, cast your vote for my girl, and see her rise to the top. Because if we're not helping each other win, then what are we doing this for? So make sure you go down to the description box below and you cast your vote for my girl. Because she's trying to make her dreams come true, and you can help make that happen. I know I'll be voting. How about you? All right, that was really fun. If you would like your small business featured on our podcast, email SistasWhoKill@gmail.com. All right, do you have a review?
Let's see. Let me see.
I got one. This one says 5 stars, don't stop. If you guys ever stop this podcast, I'm going to be sad. This podcast informs while making me laugh out loud. If my job fires me, I'm blaming you guys. Keep it up because I'll be listening. If your job fires you because you are listening in your headphones instead of doing your job, that's on you. I'm here for your commute to and from. That is the official Sisters Who Kill statement.
This one says, y'all, let me tell y'all, when I get obsessed with something, I'm all in. I love this podcast. I listen to y'all voices to fall asleep, and I go back and rewind to actually listen to what y'all say in the episode, LOL. Then I'm so happy you guys are on YouTube now because I then go over there and watch the YouTube video. Now that's how I need all of y'all to do it.
I need you to listen, then I need you to go over to YouTube and watch. I need you to do all of that.
You guys are getting probably 5 views from me on just one episode.
It's fine.
I'm too young to do Facebook forum. So I haven't joined the discussion group yet, but just know I'm here supporting y'all like crazy. I found y'all a week ago and I'm almost caught up. I listen to y'all 24/7. Mirage singing soothes my soul and Taz's voice just puts me in a calming mood. Thank you. Love y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm too young to be in the discussion forum. Excuse me. Some people are like, I'm too old to be in here. Well, there's no median, but you're just in. You're just in.
You want to talk or not?
Right. All right. That is the end of the show. Make sure you keep up with us. You can follow us anywhere. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Sisters Who Kill, Sisters Who Kill Pod, Sisters Who Kill Podcast. You can follow us on Patreon where we do fun stuff. Patreon.com/Sisters Who Kill. You can, what else can you do? What can they do?
You can join that old ass discussion
You can
group.
join that discussion group where all of us old folks are just talking all the time, just a yapping on Facebook. Facebook.com. It's Sisters Who Kill Podcast discussion group. It's private. You got to answer the questions to get in. We'll let you in. You'll have a good time. And you'll interact. Don't be in there quiet. Like, talk. Say nice things. Merch. It's the holiday season. So if you want your merch for your boo, a stocking stuffer, make sure you get it. Shop SistasWhoKill.com. That's shop SistasWhoKill.com. Anything else, friend?
Talk this, we talk back.